keep one chair in here, and we're going to make a circle. We're going to make a circle in the room, one chair for you, and then we're going to move all the other chairs against the wall. So if everybody grabs a couple chairs and just walks them over and stacks them, but leave one for yourself, that way then we'll create a space for our dining experience afterwards. What's that? Yeah, that we're going to dismiss the children. Thank you, Renda. We're going to dismiss the little kids. So everybody grab a couple chairs, stick them up against the wall, and I'll make this mine. And Shane and Letha, you get to grab a chair and come up here with Janet and me. Oh. Yeah, he goosed me. Oh. Okay. Where's my, oh, there's my water. Dude, you like that? I gotta class up my life a little bit. This is gonna be fun. Thank you, Daniel. Stay right there. No, we want it tight. It's good to see you, by the way. I hope you're going to stick around for the worship leading. And Carol? Okay, circle right around here. Hopefully we'll have just one row. Just one row of circles. These chairs need to either go in the circle or go away. How's your butt? Probably, Dan, if you could just scoot back just a tad, we'll tie up to that line right there. Hey, Aaron, good morning. The word on the street is you're working hard these days. Too hard. Well, whose fault is that? Here, Emma, we want to hook it up to this line. Here, Dan, scoot back just a little more. One row, no two-row thing. Okay, come and have a seat. We especially want our young people in this conversation. Curtis, you got a chair? You got it?
We've got room here, Tim.
There's room here. Nancy, Larry, you got a chair? Well, you can come up here and be with me. Maybe you'll behave yourself a little more. Couple more chairs, maybe? Yeah, Keith, you can shove that chair back or whatever. How we doing? We might need to Uchi just a little more to get Mary and Adam in. Okay, Dan, just a little more Uchi. Okay. Can you guys Uchi back? Is everybody in? Keith, can you Uchi in?
We've got chairs up here.
We got chairs up here. Curtis, good to see you. Curtis, hey. Melita, good. That was painless. Keith, you got a place? All right, beautiful. Well, that was painless and wonderful. Way to go, everybody. I'm looking for Andrew. Is Andrew here? Is Andrew? Oh, never mind. Okay. So, I love our culture. I love our family culture. Yesterday afternoon, I get a call or text from Letha and Shane, actually. And by the way, do I have that other mic? Here it is. And are we rolling, Rob? Because we're gonna have a conversation that hopefully will really clarify things in our family. And so I get this text from them, and they go, "We want to process some things. We want to share some thoughts with you, and see if they land on something that we feel is important for our family to do. And so we came over, we had what, 3 hours together?
3 hours.
3 hours.
Alarm for 1 hour.
Yeah. And so, Shane, I'd like you to repeat, just capture what you felt needed to happen as a family. And by the way, this needs to be our culture, where if anybody has something that they think is legit, important, a concern, everybody is free to talk about it with leadership. Yes. Now, if it's negative about a person, don't talk to that person. No, don't do that. Don't talk about anybody. But if you have something related to our family, your voice matters. Your voice matters. And so you can come to Janet and I, you can come to Jeff and Sharon, you can come to the Watsons, you can come to Seebex, you can come to Andrew and Jess, you can come to some of our leaders, an MKF leader. We want to create a culture of open communication. So nobody should feel scared to share what's on their heart, right? So that's our culture, is we submit to the Christ in one another. Can everybody just say that? Our culture is to submit to the Christ in one another. That means we're all correctable. We all can be adjusted. We all can learn. We want to be learners. We don't want to be defensive or, arrogant. We want to know that none of us can hear Jesus alone for a family. In terms of none of us has the whole body of wisdom to run a church, right? So that's dumb to think. So Jesus is in our kids and our young people. He's in you. And you're going to feel things in your gut that matter to the whole body. And we want a bravery. We want a brave space, a free space to talk about what's on our hearts. And that's what's going to be this morning. Is we feel like some things, we need to have a family conversation, and however long it takes, if we do this next Sunday or the Sunday after that, it doesn't matter. However long it takes to deal with any confusion or misunderstanding or anything like that. So frame what you shared with me, Shane, because I thought you did it so well.
So what's been on my heart lately, especially the past couple of years, is I feel like just in the world, in school systems, in families, there's a lot of confusion, there's miscommunications, there's a lack of clarity, and especially through the COVID season with, the advice is this, no wait, the advice is that, and there's, identity confusion in the school system. There's just, to me, a lack of clarity, a lack of consistency. And so I've really been reflecting on that, and last Sunday, it raised something up in my heart regarding the kids, and I just felt like there was potentially a lack of clarity around what we were shooting for. And in one Sunday, it's obvious you can't get everything across, but I just wanted to clear some things up about that and allow some space for questions, or invite you to come to us for questions, because I don't want to have this lingering, well, what are we doing? What are we going forward to? What is being asked of us on a practical level? Because, we're getting, I hope, the heart and the vision specifically for kids. But I want to get momentum going forward, and I want to, keep that going. So that would be my heart specifically around what's happening with the kids, and then just in general.
Yeah.
Well, I'd just like to add too, Tim called me about a month ago, and he's like, I really have on my heart, the Lord has given me this strong new way we're going to be doing church in regards to kids, and would you partner with me in children's ministry? And so we've been meeting, and we've formed a children's ministry team with April and Renda and Tim and I. And as we have been meeting and processing all of this, we just realized, and I had it in my spirit yesterday, just that I felt like there were perhaps things that needed to be mended in our family over the past 2 years before we ask you to go on this next level with us in this next journey. Because if we're going to ask you to invite, and invite your hearts into this, we don't want to just cover up these layers that we need to mend first.
That's good.
Yeah, so, and mending could mean anything that created kind of confusion or distrust or, like we're moving too fast or we're missing you. Those things can create a little gap in your heart of confidence that we're following the Lord well. And so, if you're going to go into a new era, a new chapter, a new season of things, and you've got some lingering, undealt with issues in the past, it could come up and affect the present and the future. So what we felt like, so basically, when they called me and we sat down and we talked through different things, I felt like they were spot on the money and that we needed to adjust our time this morning to accommodate a process of understanding, clarity, healing, anything like that needs to happen as a people. And so we've always been a tribe, a people, that committed to multi-generational discipleship. In other words, we all want to have an upstream group of people or persons that are helping to coach us forward in being like Jesus. And we want a downstream. We want to have a way that we influence other people, particularly the next generation. So that's always been on the table. We've always wanted to reclaim the reclaiming of Christ's kingdom through creating a multi-generational tribe or family that impacts cities. And so this has never changed. Our vision has never changed. Christ is at the center of our vision. He's the rock. And the reclaiming of Christ's kingdom via discipleship. Now, we've tried to work on different themes. How do you make a disciple? So we've worked over the years on experiential learning. And we have like a tremendous gift in our wilderness ministry called Shram. Because Shram's forte is experiential learning in the context of wilderness and community in wilderness. And so we are wanting to become really adept or really skilled at helping people grow experientially, because just concepts, just talking doesn't help people grow much, right? You got to do stuff to learn. How many of you learn more by what you do than what you hear, right? Okay. So another way we learn is relationally. Relational discipleship is how Jesus did it. Relational discipleship means there's a very strong attachment. And then in the attaching, the character of Jesus transmits to another person. It doesn't just transmit through information. It transfers through connection or attachment. So the people, we become like the people who love us. So that's why who we hang out with is pretty important. If we hang out with people that have very bad values, we're probably going to be toxified by that. So getting around the right people and attaching to them long term will start forming core values in us. That's why we introduced early on DNA groups, triads of people, gender specific, to connect week in and week out with one another. That's why we introduced missional kingdom families. In fact, our whole church was started 14, 15 years ago by a small group. And we have never deviated from that value, ever. It may appear that we have, but we haven't at all. And I want to get back to that. So missional kingdom families of anywhere from 6 to 16 is in living rooms, men, women, and children loving Jesus together, being a family, and working on different kingdom skills in life. That has always been our building block, because that was in the early church. They met from house to house. So how many of you know that that's a big deal for us? And I'm gonna trace back where we kind of maybe confused people. And then the third context is Scripture is the temple court gathering, where they all gather together, all those missional kingdom families, all those house churches, and they got together. It says in the Bible every day. every day there was a temple court gathering, and the apostles, the prophets, they preached the word, they learned the Bible, they learned God's ways, and they worshiped the Lord together in these bigger group settings. And the bigger setting was designed to minister to the Lord and to coach the littler settings in how to follow Jesus. So the big served the little. Everybody got that? The big served the little. It wasn't just the end, it was a means to the end of making disciples in house churches and 2s and 3s. So, all right, backing up, and Andrew, you can jump in and help me with this, you and Jess or whatever, but we started just with house churches. Then we began to feel like we needed to bring, our house churches started multiplying. Then we felt like we started to need to bring the house churches together for a temple court meeting. And at that time, because we were a smaller family, we just met once a month. Can anybody remember some of the buildings we met in, just for fun, just for a golden memory? Like, yes, Sarah, where did we meet? Here, I need a... Yeah, the quadrangle-dangle. I call it the quadrangle-dangle. But the quadrangle square dance hall. Yeah. How many of you remember the quadrangle?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that fun? That was a fun place. But actually, that was one of the last places where we met. Where was one of the first places that we met? Way back, somebody other than Sarah, because Sarah knows so much. No, okay. Yeah, Josiah, because you were playing guitar when you were a little squirt in the first place, if you remember. Where was another place?
The church by the Uniwild Bank.
The church by the Uniwild Bank. What's that?
I know that.
You know what I think that was? I think that was, oh, yeah, that was tribal. That was the Christian church. Okay.
First Christian.
Yeah, First Christian. That's right. Thank you, Sarah. That was First Christian, and that was a tribal. Bump it up, bro. Good memory.
I have a teacher that is a leader in the quadrangle square dancing team.
No kidding. Wow, man. Hey, maybe she could teach you how to square dance, and then you could teach me. You're already learning? Okay. So where was another building we met? Early on, one of the first buildings. Janet.
America Inn Hotel.
Do you guys remember that? The America Inn Hotel? Do you remember that, Jess? Hold on. Where was it?
It was at the time Ramada. Remember? The Ramada. And we switched. No, it's that hotel as you turn onto Skyline Drive.
Yeah.
We met in there for a couple Sundays as well. And then they jacked up the prices and we went to the American. And it was a better deal because the kids could swim.
That was super smart. That was a smart move, yeah.
Then there was at the Watson and Shane's office building.
Yeah, SRI.
It was called the Snowy Range Instruments.
Snowy Range Instruments, all right. And Taylor, how old were you? Were you a dink of what? Hold on, how much?
I was like 6.
6 years old then? Holy sweet Jesus. From 6 to 16. So we did meet actually once or twice this was in the early days of vision casting at Schramm, in the Schramm building. And so, boy, think of that. Those were like really early days, right, Andrew? Beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And so we've been growing as a church numerically. We've been growing spiritually. We've been growing in our understanding of discipleship. Learning how to make a disciple has been an evolving topic. Has it not, Andrew, would you say? It's just like we're learning how people change. Then we got a hold of, more and more understanding of how the brain is involved in spirituality. How the brain is involved in relationships and growth. You want to comment on that, Andrew? Just on the whole, but that was a big deal. Because for some reason, here's this engine in our body that has a spiritual side to it. How many of you know there's a physicality to spirituality? We say that a lot around here. Like, for example, the Bible says, be fruitful and multiply, right? Does that involve your physical plumbing? I won't explain all that, young people, but that the command to be fruitful and multiply involves our bodies. So the command to love God and love people, guess what? That involves our brains. So we started beginning to realize that sometimes if the goal is to love God, love ourselves, love our neighbors, and even love our enemies, we need to start training our minds to get the mind of Christ, our brains, to learn how to connect and love and not stay in a triggered, offended place. So we've grown in our assignment to learn to love, and we're getting more tools on how to train people to mature. We're learning all these stages of development. We're learning learning more and more about kingdom life. All right, so back last summer, about a year ago, we were taking a pulse on the leaders, on the MKF leaders. And other than one person, all of our other leaders were feeling a lot of weariness, a lot of tiredness, and also feeling a desire to receive more equipping. And so to a person, we recognized we needed to make a shift temporarily to accommodate that desire. Okay? And what we did was we basically said we're going to hold a special gathering for the whole church on Thursday nights while we work with leaders to do more healing and equipping and connecting. Do you guys remember this? Yeah. And again, feel free to ask a question. So we made a short-term strategic adjustment. Now, one of the impacts of that, I think, was we didn't realize how much we were messing with attachment. Attachment, it's so hard to build a secure attachment that when you actually get one at some level, you want to hold on to it for life, for dear life. Because love is a rare thing and attaching is a rare thing. And I think in that adjustment, some people got hurt because they had attached in a group, and even though the group was tired, or some of the people were tired, there was a temporary dismantling of MKFs, and that produced some pain in people. How many of you understand what I'm saying right now? Yeah, that just produced pain and confusion. Like, are we not doing MKFs anymore? And why would you break us up? Now, I'd like, to talk about that. And I'd like you to have a freedom to talk about that, because the intent was never to break an attachment. That's why we held Thursday nights. But not everybody came Thursday nights, but it had the appearance that we weren't honoring that attachment or that group. And it put pain in people's hearts. And I need to personally apologize for any confusion and pain that caused to you. I want to ask forgiveness, because I do think that we didn't fully tease out or pull out all the ramifications of things in a way that was sensitive to every person. And I want to personally ask forgiveness for that. So what happened was, and we can talk more about that, but what happened was then we went down the road in having these MKF leaders get trained and connect, even to the point of doing an overnight up in Vitavu. And about 2 days later, it snowed like a blizzard in September. And so then the goal was, so we kept meeting and kept connecting on through the holidays and into like January, February, and then we felt like it's time to begin to reopen our MKFs. And we said, let's wait on the Lord, and let's ask the Lord to activate the people that have an energy or heart to lead an MKF. And so it was never to stop them, it was only to take a short-term equipping time and resting time. And so they began rolling out. These MKFs started rolling out. Jeff and Sharon stepped up really early on and said, we're ready to rumble. And they began reaching out to people, and they formed an MKF that is, how many people are in your MKF now? 10. And how many children? 10 adults and, so 17. 10 adults and 7 children. So almost as many children as adults in their MKF. And they've built a rhythm that is really incredible, and they're working on kingdom life skills and relational skills in that MKF. Then other groups began rolling out. Let's name a couple. What's that? The Bateman group. So Aaron and April opened up a group. Mark and Liz Watson opened up a group. And hold on, we're going to get to that connections in a minute. Hang on there. And then Rob and Renda opened a group. And so we have 5 MKFs now flowing. And then we have Connections Wednesday. And I'm sorry. The other one is the Bullers. What's that? And Derek, yeah. And so 5, and then Connections Wednesday is an equipping time. So that's just a history. So they started rolling out, but some of the hurt and the confusion in that season still is lingering in some people. And one of the thinkings is, well, are you guys going back to just being a Sunday morning church and not being connected, not being committed to relational discipleship? Are you just about having a big meeting? And of course the answer is absolutely not, but the impression could be that that's the truth. So Shane, I want you to, so now we need to, I'm just kind of giving you a history of somewhere I think we had maybe some confusion or some missteps and potential hurt, and we want to clear this up as best we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I feel like through this past year and a half, there were some big gaps in communication with all of this. Mm-hmm. And so our goal here this morning is to have this space to communicate and ask the question, well, how do I plug into an MKF now? Or what does that look like? Or whatever your questions may be. It's a time for that now.
Do you have any thoughts about what would be helpful right now, Shane, in terms of?
Well, one thing I brought up is it feels like, and I don't think this is the intention, but it feels like there is some large items that are maybe at the 80% mark. And there's multiple ones of those, and when that starts happening, especially at more than one large item, that creates, again, confusion, clarity, almost like it feels like the ball has been dropped. And I don't think that's the intention, but one thing I've noticed is just that it just feels like there's some things that aren't finished. There's some unfinished business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, this may be with some people that aren't even here this morning, but we thought we would make it safe for you and for people that aren't here today, for whatever reason, to open the dialogue to rebuild a communication unto trust and connection. So there's no one person that we're looking toward that, I'm apologizing on behalf of our leadership team, but there's no one person that I don't think, intentionally meant to hurt anybody or anything like that. It was just, if there is Shane mentioned to me in his company, if the leadership makes a decision that starts trickling down into the family and there's not a lot of saturated communication, then there can be a confusion and hurt and misunderstanding. And he says that he felt like we could have done better and need to recover that process. That's what I heard Shane say. So I thought, boy, you can't really go forward with confidence if you still got some lingering confusion in your yesterday. So that's kind of what we're trying to clean up. Can I just clarify one thing? Yeah, sure. Sure.
So I'm just a little confused.
Yeah,
Exactly
sure.
what you're asking for. So, because Shane and Letha started with the framing around kids and youth,
Right.
and so, and then you mentioned last week, and I wasn't here, so I don't know what was
Okay.
shared. So maybe there was something confusing about last week that needs cleared up. But then you were framing more around this larger theme of deconstructing MKFs,
Right.
rebuilding MKFs. So
How
are
do they
you asking
connect?
for input on both those themes, one of those themes, or
Yep.
all of those themes?
All of them, they all
Okay.
interact, they all connect, because here's what we want to do. On Sunday mornings, we want to upgrade our commitment to Sunday mornings as a context for multi-generational discipleship.
Okay, so you're just wanting feedback on like leadership decisions over the last maybe year and a half that
Yeah.
have caused impact.
Right, exactly,
Okay.
because
That's helpful.
Yeah, because we've done, this church has been growing in stages, is what I'm trying to say, Andrew, and we've been taking on more and more understanding, and we've been growing in stages. You know, there was a stage in which we added tribal gatherings. So this church, there was a stage we added a building. That was a pretty big deal, you know? I mean, so we've been growing in stages. And anytime you go from one chapter to another chapter, you want to be sure that there's closure, or let's put it this way, there's a good, strong sense of understanding of that chapter in order to go to the next one. And what's happened is that on Sunday mornings, in some cases, they've been presented as sort of optional. We had them once a month, so, you know, and in Wyoming culture, people like to get away. And so where does the Sunday morning fit in our life together? And we're trying to get an upgrade in where Sunday mornings fit, because we want the big to serve the little. And we want to be way more intentional in giving a kingdom life skills and relational skills. We want to train on Sunday mornings, and we want to ask more and more people to be involved multi-generationally with our children. Because we think that in order for you to grow, you need to interface with children. There's a lot of Bible verses about that we opened up yesterday. But then Shane and Letha said, you're jumping into a new chapter of our church. We're calling our church up to another level of discipleship making. And if we're going to do that, and we still got people that are stuck back in our yesterday confusion, then it's going to actually affect the next chapter. So they do fit together, and so we felt like we needed to reassure people that this desire to see Sunday mornings more deliberate and intentional commitment on Sunday mornings with practices is not a statement against MKFs. It's not. We don't see Sunday upstaging MKFs. We see them complementing it. And that's a big statement. Because it looked like for a season, Sundays were getting the prime focus above MKFs when they weren't.
Andrew, thanks for that question. I really appreciate it, because it kind of went in multiple directions.
Yeah.
I started out because that's why Letha and I came to Tim, to just try to figure out a little bit more what was going on with the kids and what we were actually going for, because the vision to me, I mean, I am all in, believe me. But I wanted to start this off with vision, but mixing in practical timeline, like, you know, do we need volunteers for the next year starting tomorrow? Is this October? Is this November? Where are we headed? What's going on? You know, what are we actually asking? So I feel like what I value is a little bit more of vision, big picture, mixed in with practical, here's what we're literally doing today. Here's what we're doing through the fall. Here's what we're hoping to get towards come winter. And keep that dialogue going so that, you know, it's time. Time is a lot of times a currency. And I would like to be a little bit more clear on what we're thinking and what we're asking, and more practical application for what we can be doing now, what we're headed towards, and the needs. And so that was my heart. That's what we started the conversation with, and it morphed into many different things, which is what Tim is touching on. So my goal would be to bring clarity around what Letha, Tim, and myself are going for with what was discussed last week soon, so that I would like it to be easy enough to understand that you guys can go relay that information to anyone that might not be here. So if that's not possible, then I feel like it's not communicated very well. Mm-hmm. And like you say, Andrew, thank you, because it did bring up other very large topics.
Mr. Derek.
Just one quick question for you, Shane. Just you said that there were 5-ish areas that are kind of like 80% or whatever, and I was just curious if you could like name what those things are, just so that I think that would be helpful for me to understand what's going on.
Good question, Derek. Thank you.
I think 5 just happened to fit on my hand. I don't know if that was probably an exaggeration. I felt like, again, it started with my processing over the kids. And, MKFs, I felt like that was not completely finished. And yeah, just clarity. So I guess that's only 2. And Sunday, the importance of Sunday mornings and what that looks like and why. And MKFs, what that looks like and why. DNAs, it almost felt like there was a lot of changes that were happening pre-COVID. COVID came around, and it started to trigger, well, whatever your opinion is, you can probably walk down the street and assume that 50% of the people are mad at you. I mean, seriously. It doesn't matter which side you pick on your opinion of that. So that I felt like that really kind of messed things up and started triggering things within people, within me. And then I wasn't part of a DNA for quite a while, just no fault of anyone. It was just life circumstances. And our kids went back to school, big transition. We went from, homeschooling to no school, to back to school, to maybe school, maybe not, to full-time. And, Ty's a freshman. Taylor last year was a freshman. Grace is a sophomore. We've just got these big life changes. What was a sophomore, sorry. You are a junior. just yell at me, you can.
I think
and then launching this youth MKF and launching other MKFs. And I just felt like maybe people didn't understand, or it wasn't communicated clearly on what was happening. And so I asked Tim, I said, Tim, I have been to Sunday morning probably twice this entire summer. We've been gone. Yeah, we've been gone. We've had family here. Letha and I, it took about 6 weeks to recover from COVID. So we got hit pretty hard. And I was feeling a bit of discouragement around not attaching very well. So I went into the conversation fully realizing that all of these feelings, this could just be me. I don't want to speak for everyone here, but I want to at least provide a space for people to say, yeah, okay, that's me too. Or, no, Shane, you've got your own problems. You were triggered. Go figure it out. Which is fine. I'm happy to do that. And I also felt like there is a growing sense of a generational, I wouldn't call it a solid line, but I would say that in general, I see people younger than Letha and I's generation, so let's call it pre-Gen X, or I don't even know the names of all the X. There's Z's and S's and whatever. But there's definitely a group, and we say this, they're ahead of us relationally. And they're kind of looking at us saying, all right, I'm glad you guys are talking all the time. I'm glad you guys are trying to figure out your stuff. But hey, whenever you're ready, whenever you're done, why don't you come play basketball with me? Why don't you come have a little bit of fun? And so that was landing on my heart as well. I didn't really answer your question specifically, but that's kind of that's.
So what I would say, there's some of the last relational skills that we've heard about or understood is how to maneuver through complex emotions, many complex emotions at the same time. That takes a high level of maturity to navigate and converge complex emotions at the same time. And when COVID hit the country, it exploded fear in the hearts of people and confusion, and it split the country ideologically. Masks or no masks, vaccinations or no vaccinations. And do you meet publicly or don't meet publicly? So it created a culture nationwide of fear. And then you hear of somebody that you love or know about that dies with COVID, and you hear different solutions to COVID. All of those are very complex emotions. And then when you add, what are we as a church going to meet on Sunday mornings publicly, and are we going to wear masks, and are we going to do, it started creating a rigorous dialogue, and some people got triggered and hurt just in that conversation. We had people say, well, you're the no mask church, or you're the church that's still meeting. And so it began to, it created some putting people in an enemy mode with one another if you disagreed. And so we tried to say, look, serve your own conscience. Serve your own conscience. We're not going to come down and say, you have to vaccinate or you're not of Jesus, or you don't get to vaccinate or you're not of Jesus. We said to our family, look, follow Jesus yourself, and don't judge others. So we kept an open hand, but still walking through that, just that alone in our church has caused tension. And added to, do we believe in MKFs or not? You add those are what we would call complex emotions in attachment and in fear. And what you do, the way you regulate and come back to those things is by having a conversation about it in a calm way, and you become compassionately curious. I think that's the key statement I would say is, let's be compassionately curious. And when you're compassionately curious, then you can listen and attune. And it's okay for people to talk about these things and not feel judged, because you're going to be curious. You're going to be compassionately curious. So those are what I would say were the complex emotions that Shane we're trying to lay them out. And then so we come along and go, look, in order to be a disciple-making movement, really for sure, it's got to be multi-generational. That's a value in the kingdom. That's a value in the life model. That's a value in other words, there's something happens when somebody at one level of maturity interacts with somebody at a lesser level of maturity, so to speak. Something powerful happens when you interact with children. I've got a lot of Bible verses on that piece of paper that talks about it. In fact, Abraham was released into his assignment because he loved children. He would pass things on to the next generation. So we present, as guys, we want to recover Sunday mornings. Now, here's where I think another confusion came, is that on a number of Sunday mornings, not all of them, we would sort of slip into a worship and teaching mode that was kind of a traditional model of church. A long message and worship. And that gave the impression that we were going back to traditional church. And even though our topics, I don't think, were so traditional, our topics were pretty spot on, but I think that the format undermined what we said was a value. I want to apologize for that too. So we're learning now that the more exercises you do, the more practice you have, the more interaction you encourage, the more people are going to grow. But you got to understand something. The minute we started doing that, we lost people. Because people came in here and they go, oh my God, the idea that a group of people is going to be looking at me and I'm going to be looking at them, that freaked a lot of people out. That you would actually sit me in front of somebody else and ask me to talk or ask me to be engaged, that breaks a paradigm for many people when they think about church. They're thinking, I'm showing up, I'm looking at the back of somebody's head, I'm going to receive something and go home. And we're going, no, we want you to be proactive. We want you to be engaged. Well, just that freaked people out. That caused tension, pain, like, I'm sorry, but you just crossed a line. Then, I'm going to add more complexity to it. We would say to people, now please don't try to fix somebody if they'd share. Please don't try to give them advice. Please just listen. But that was too hard of an ask for many people, and they couldn't help themselves. And they would start throwing advice and Bible verses at people when they would share their heart. And that hurt, and that like confused them because they didn't come to open their heart to be then preached at. You get my point? So by opening this new concept up to a group of people that are just learning how to do it, we had, even in our small groups, we had some missteps. And that hurt people, and we lost a couple more because of that. So we've been a little bit ambiguous about Sunday mornings. And I want to come out and say, would you be open? Could you consider the possibility that Sunday mornings format goes into a completely different format where we actually practice kingdom skills and, yes, a little bit of teaching, but a whole bunch of experience and relational connecting. Now, we've done that at Tribal, right? We practice healing, praying for the sick. We've practiced inner healing. We've practiced attunement. We've practiced listening. We've practiced a lot of things. We've practiced attachment. So I feel like we could reformat. Now, we've talked about this. Andrew and I have talked a lot about this, and others have talked a lot about this. We want to go there, but that's a little bit going to stretch those people that are designing that experience on Sunday morning, like me, like you. I want you to ask and help me. But if we can do it properly, if we can do it with excellence, we can borrow from the Thrive training that many of us are going to go to, those little exercises, and we can actually bring them here so Derek doesn't have to pay the big money that he asked about the other day. No, we can bring it here and piece it out bit by bit. We've got some expert people on experiential learning. We can integrate that in our Sunday mornings, and then it will absolutely positively impact your DNA groups and your MKFs and your marriages and your friendships and your relationships at work. So, Adam, I see you're kind of raring to go, but I wanted you to see, I wanted to piece this all together and say, this has been complicated with COVID, with our format, and we want to get all on the same page so that we're enthusiastic about our church and our Sunday mornings and what we're trying to do here, which is make people like Jesus. That's all. Go ahead, Adam.
So I was going to say, so Mary and I started here 3 years ago, right when the transition happened. So in the room, raise your hand if you've been here less than 3 years.
Ooh, see, that's helpful.
Okay. If you look around the room, almost everybody that's here is fairly new, right? Or is less than that transition. So I think a lot of us don't even fully understand what that was. So when Mary and I found the rock, it took us like 4 months to make the first service because we'd show up and nobody would be here. And
right,
then
because it wasn't the first
we'd show up the
month.
next week and no one would be here. And then it took, or the week that it was on the website that they were having service, we were scheduled to be somewhere else. So it took us a really long time before we actually, and we didn't know anybody. So it wasn't like we were like, hey, what week is service so we can make sure we're there. Okay. So then we made it to one service. We met Josh and Amy. We hung out with them. And that literally the next month we started every week corporate. At that point, it didn't matter when you showed up, you knew there was a service. So it made a huge difference for us. If we would have met anyone in the room and they said, hey, show up to our MKF at Jess and Andrew's house, I would have probably been like, no. Thanks, though. That's a little more intimate than what I'm ready for. Like, I want to go into the church and I want to get a feel for the church. What is our corporate Sunday look like? Because this is what I'm used to. If let's go in, let's do worship, let's have a sermon, let's learn something, and then let's go to our small groups and let's experience it. Let's practice that in the small groups after we've taught on Sunday morning. So the Sunday morning was the main focal piece, and then the MKFs was the experiential, which small groups in most corporate churches, right? So I just kind of wanted to share that because for me it was that honestly was probably the make or break of us staying here, was the fact that we actually had the every week corporates. Otherwise, we would have went and found something that did have that every week service and connected there instead, because that's what we were used to. And I'm guessing majority of the people who raised their hands, if you were in a church somewhere else, that is what you were used to as well and what you were looking for. So it did make a huge difference for us.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that because I feel like, people can come to a church that's like our church and be offended with the way we do things and walk away because it's just weird or whatever. But I feel like for some of us here, like I know for me, I can get offended with a more traditional church because I'm looking for something a little more deep. So the traditional church, I think some of us get offended with the idea of a traditional church, and it keeps us from being able to receive, whatever God is doing. And so I guess I don't even really know what I'm saying, but I think like as a church, we need to not be offended with the format, like moving forward. Whatever the format looks like, whether it looks like a traditional church or not, like just be open to receiving whatever God's doing. Anyway.
Thank you, Mary. Andrew, did you have some?
Me?
No, I did.
No, somebody asked. I was.
No. Not at the moment.
That song, my heart's beating out of my chest. I, don't want to lose this moment. Anyway, I've just this whole time had like a gratitude on my heart in the sense of no matter how many years, 15 years ago or 3 years ago or this moment right now, our number one value is to jump in the vein of what God is doing. I've had visions of water parks, and that, God, the body and God, and, like really just going with the vein of what he's doing right now, whether it's in Sudan or it's in Laramie or Chad or in Kansas City, to jump into the vein of God, and that is to hear his voice and move where he wants to move.
Yes.
And, he wants to see us and disciple us to be more whole, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And so that social, emotional connection with him, as to why we've been doing Life Model and connecting with Thrive, and why the Lord has blessed us with, Jeff and Sharon and the Subers and different people, and then, just even Andrew's transformation of hearing God's voice and letting God and his kingdom stir on those courses at SRAM, and even in the just the full-time employees there. And so I want to also state that, so whether it's MKFs or DNAs, that deposit of his kingdom and what he's doing. And the gratitude that I have is on Thursday nights for years now, to pray for, Father's house of prayer and for him to come in the, the 7 mountains of cultural influence. And our cry of our heart has been to connect with him relationally, and that requires us to have more of a emotional and spiritual connection with him, and then with each other. And the final kaboom here is I started wanting to infiltrate our culture in the schools. And I teach at the charter school, and trying to break through, and the Lord sends my principal's wife of all people, who's going to do a training on social emotional learning, and last year this teacher and I were strategizing, and it took relational breakthrough with her. We were about to wring each other's necks around this time last year. And she's like, I want to bring social emotional learning. I need these kids to open up. I need them to engage relationally, and so that they can learn. And I want to bring God into the schools. And I said, well, that's a bit difficult, but God is a God who loves. And if we can bring gratitude and love, that disguises him. And, boom, now God's in the schools, incognito. So then I get a thing on my email yesterday, like this week, and the district teachers, all of them, are going to be going to a workshop of social emotional learning. And the woman is like talking about attachments on this overview video. She's talking about like the kids are in overwhelm, and how to get them to engage, and how to get them to not live in fear, and crush down anxiety. So God is concerned, and he's involved in the littlest things to the biggest things.
Yes.
And if we can just keep our eyes on that core, like I almost want to stand in the middle and say, the core is the kingdom of God and what he's doing, and to stay in the vein, no matter what we're doing.
Wow, Jess.
Go.
That was some fire, girl. Thank you, Jess.
I just want to bring up the point that I tend to harp on, which is personally, we all need to personally develop time to practice his presence.
Yes.
That has to be very critical to everyone's lives, because see, if we're not with him in depth and seeking his face in both the word and listening to him, we have nothing to give to each other relationally, or to this city or culture. And that is your bottom line, as I see it, for each one of our lives. It's got to be a daily practice, because it's out of knowing him and being filled with him, we have something to give and something to flow.
Yep.
Otherwise, frankly, it's our flesh.
So let me give you an example of this. Mary, that's spot on. Thank you. Thank you so much. So one of our deepest group identity statements is that we are a people that practices an Emmanuel lifestyle. We want to practice seeing Jesus, walking with Jesus, being led by the Holy Spirit every minute of every day. So for an example of a Sunday, we want to practice the presence of God, learn the skills of seeing the Lord, integrating his word and spirit, practicing that in a Sunday morning, which can bleed into an MKF, and you can practice it there as well. You can then practice it in a DNA group. We can practice it in our multi-generational settings with our young people, and then we can practice it at work and in the neighborhood. So, in other words, the Sunday, the big, serves the little. And we've done this in our Connections Wednesday. Mary and myself and others, we've taught on how to practice the presence of God. And we've done that on Sunday. We did a series on it, and we want to keep that main emphasis. So that's how the big can keep setting the kind of the context for the little and serve it. And Mary, I want to thank you for that, because you've been a real champion of an Emmanuel lifestyle. And I just honor you for that, Mary, because, no, thank you for keeping that in front of us all the time. So Gretchen.
Well, it's been almost 6 years with you.
With us?
Next month it'll be 6 years. So I've seen the change. When I first came in, I was, we can't choose our natural family.
Mm-hmm.
We get, unless we adopt.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was in the Bateman-Watson one for a very long time. And I felt like I was stagnant. And so when the transition came last year, for me personally, it was a welcome change. I was at the point where I was like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this Christian lifestyle right? And to get, when you guys were sharing what MCAFs were starting, I sat in the back going, well, I'm not into servant evangelism, and I'm not into street evangelism, and I'm not into this or that or the other thing. And I was kind of hesitant about the Wednesday night connections. But I believe, for me, I have grown so much with your help, Tim, with Mary's help, with Diana's help, with Sue's help, and Nancy's help.
Go Nancy.
And I'm not there yet, but I'm really enjoying getting to know people like Liz and Patrick, and people that I haven't. Comfort. She was in the very beginning one. I got to know her a little bit more. I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I'm floundering. I'm one that can actually, get in on Sunday mornings, and I don't care who I'm with, in our small groups. It's easy for me to talk. It's easy for me to share. But it's just, working on me that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
Because I can give, we don't want to fix people. But there are times that I felt like I wanted to be fixed by somebody else.
Well, that's different.
How
If
do
you
I
ask
do
to be
this?
fixed, that's a little different.
How do I do this? Am I doing this right?
That's a little different.
Because I can read the Bible, I can do all the Thrive things. But if I can't have that, you're doing this right.
It helps to be affirmed, yeah. Can you go grab that from her? Yeah. Thank you, Gretchen. Appreciate that. Again, I want to honor everyone that's sharing. It takes a lot of courage. Dr. Jeff?
There's somebody else, doctor, but not me. But
pretty soon.
Oh, I just want to make an observation as one of these people that's been here less than 3 years. But we, in trying to transition into a church based on emotionally healthy relationships, which is carrying out the second greatest commandment, so that's hugely important to God. Every transition is messy. And so I just want to say, Tim, thank you for leading us in this direction, but we acknowledge that this is a hard thing to do, and any kind of transition is clunky and awkward and messy, and we have our aspiration of what we aspire to, and then there's a gap between that and where we are today. And so,
well said.
As we are aware of the gap, and I think that's part of what you're saying, Shane, is that, okay, there's this 80% of we're going this way, but how do we close that gap? So I just want to remind all of us that we have a responsibility to be patient and extend grace even to the leadership of the church to say, okay, it is kind of messy, and this whole thing of working through how do we actually walk out this value that we have up here is difficult. So we need to extend mercy, particularly to Tim.
Thank you.
And everybody else. We're working on it. There's no question about the sincerity of Tim's heart, Tim and Janet's heart, in leading us in this thing. But, getting it actually done is what we're all working on, and we all have a lot to give. And so, anyway, let's all do everything that we can to do that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Just an observation. I want to go back to, I think Marianne said. Mary. She's Mary. She's Mary Ellen. When you were talking about the format, how some might be offended by traditional church, some would be more offended by a more relational, we include practices. I think the key thing is being tender with weakness, right? Some people are going to have a particular mindset coming in, and they would be overwhelmed by practices, and I got to share and interact, and And so just being aware, are you new here? Let me explain. We do things a little bit different here. You may feel somewhat uncomfortable, but you're free not to participate at a deep level.
Well said. Beautiful.
Right? So you use the word well about invitation. And part of an invitation is the right to say no.
Well said.
And even, some people might be much more comfortable plugging into an MKF before they came to a big corporate gathering. Some people be more comfortable with a corporate gathering first. So I don't think you need to be afraid about what format you might use. I do think, back to Shane's point, clarity, who are we, what consciousness of why are we doing what we're doing. We're trying to create a fearless people who love like Jesus, the life model thing. And so having clarity how those things work and how they work together. And then as people are coming in, just be aware they're coming in from wherever. Right? They can be coming in from a super traditional religious experience. I go to church, I hear hymns, and I hear a sermon, and I smile, eat a cookie, shake hands, and go home. Or, no, I'm used to a house church, or I'm used to a church that has worship for 40 minutes and very, bumped up that way. And so it's just a matter of trying to connect with people. Who are you? Where are you coming from? If you're, because that's our value. We're tender with weakness. We don't want people to be overwhelmed by a particular format or practice just because it's completely new to them. We do this because we're clear on why we do this. We invite you to participate. We also invite you, if this is your first time here, maybe you're not comfortable doing an exercise. Well, you can be an observer. Then you can start to understand why we do what we do. We still love you. There's no shame that you're new and you don't understand how we do things, because this is us. So that was my thought.
So I want to follow up on that. In terms of the complex emotions, the minute we go into attachment and relationship as a primary focus. The idea of, connecting relationally with God and people, particularly our enemy, that in itself instills a lot of insecurity. That just saying, I'm going to learn to attach and love well with people that have hurt me in the past. Just that invitation takes a lot of brave people. And I want to compliment all of you. I've never had the privilege of walking with a group of people that have made so many brave choices in their lives. You guys blow our minds. We moved here to see if we could not experience relational Christianity together. But we didn't have to move. I mean, we've been in this story for 15 years, starting with meeting Andrew on on Jackson Lake. And that began a journey. And every one of us has a story. But honestly, I am so proud of our family because at the same time we're trying to, if people hurt you, then why would you want to re-enter and try to learn how to love people? You get my point? Our greatest source of pain is relationships. Attachment pain. Everybody got that? That's our greatest source of pain. And we're basically saying we're going to go in and learn to attach and confront our attachment pain and learn how to do it better. This is huge. Very hard to build relational Christianity in today's culture. And so we want to, I want to thank you for being brave. And I want to thank you for being patient when there are communication gaps. And I want to say that anytime you've got a concern or an issue, there's people you can talk to about it. And we will not shame you. We will not argue with you. We will not get defensive. We will listen and we will be correctable. And so the reason why we changed this whole format for today was because Shane and Letha came and said, I think we need to take a little time and process. And I thought, you are spot on, you guys. And so we submitted to the Christ in them. And do you think so far so good? Yes. It was good. So we don't think this is just one and done. There's going to be more need to communicate. That's fine. But we want to invite everybody to re-engage. And in particular, we're asking you to see how the Sunday fits the narrative for what we're doing. Because it's been a little kind of, it floats out there like, is that a value or not? And I need to say that the temple court gathering is a pretty big deal. That doesn't mean you got to be here every Sunday. People need to go hunting. People need to go fishing. So I'll get you there, Aaron. So Sunday morning isn't. Again, we're going to miss MKF sometimes or DNA sometimes. But the point that we would like to go for is a coordinating of life together. We'd like to have a little more like, hey, I can't be there, and here's why. Because after Aaron shares, we're going to now lay out what we mean by multi-generational discipleship with young people. We're going to lay that out for just one more second, and then we're going to ask you to consider praying about it. So can you run that mic over to Aaron? Everybody say, hey, Aaron. Hey, Aaron.
Okay, so I just lost my train of thought. Okay.
If I say go Buffaloes, would that help? If I say go Cowboys, would that help?
No. Oh, crap.
Oh, go ahead. Ask your question, Adam.
So here's something that I have one specific person that has shared a lot of his feelings on this with me. So question for Justin and Andrew. How long was your MKF together before the transition?
We've had a lot of MKFs in our lives.
Okay.
That's a big question.
Okay.
That's why we're taking a break.
Yes. No, that's great.
Our whole marriage, we've had.
Okay. A pseudo one. I would say the last one.
Last one
Well, I'd like you to.
was 4 years.
Okay. So the thing, I was going to say, or longer. The thing that was brought up to me for the people who have been in them for a long time like that, and him asking this without asking it, is, so I think a question in leadership for a long time is, how do we grow MKFs so that we're raising up leaders and then we're bringing more, and then we're raising up leaders and we're bringing more. Josh and Amy have shared that a lot with us, okay? But how do you also do that without it feeling like a divorce happened? So when you have a family that close and that tight for 4 years or more, how do you transition that and continue to grow without it feeling like a divorce? And I think that's the hard part, that we're all, because it split, right? We were only in Josh and Amy's for 3 or 4 months, and we were like, what? We're leaving all of our friends? Like, these are the only group of people we actually know here, right? And then we went with Shane and Letha, and we were so excited, and it was awesome. And then it was only a year, and then it happened again, and it was like, okay, I don't know if I want to put myself in that kind of a position again, right? So I think that's the hard part that we have to try and figure out as well, is what is that point with MKFs, that it's, we want to keep growing because we do feel stagnant. What Gretchen said, it was fantastic. But for those that are feeling great, that it doesn't feel like mom and dad got a divorce. And now I don't see brother and sister, and now I don't see.
I think that's a major question that we want to address at another time, because it's a pretty complicated one.
And it is.
But I think we do need to learn about the golden value of long-term securely attached relationships, and I think we have to revisit all that. To me, if you're an apostolic movement, you parallel a lot like the family culture. You don't want Emma and Cora and Sarah living in your house at 50. You want them there. As much as you love them, you don't want to enable immaturity. So I think there's going to be a culture that says we raise people up, we stay attached and connected, but we send out. That's a different spirit than split. Yeah, that we multiply by sending out. It's a more family model, and I think we've disrupted that family model in the way we've done it. And that's where the apologies come in. That's where the please forgive us. In the journey to grow and to train, there was some disruption and some rupture that took place that we need to go back and talk to those people about and ask forgiveness and say, the pain that you experienced is now going to come into our collective wisdom, and we're going to revisit this at a whole nother level. And I want to assure you of that. Those guys that went through that, including you, I feel like we need to put that on the family table and go, I have such a deeper understanding of attachment today than I did even 3 years ago. And what that did, I wasn't totally cued in on. So anyway, this is a huge question. And I just want to say thank you for bringing it up. And trust me, it's not going to go away. It's on the table, and we're going to grow in our learning from what just happened. So to honor Jess real quick before you, Jess, thank you for affirming that going on a journey to follow Jesus, it's an exploration. There's no roadmap. We've not had a roadmap to do relational Christianity, just so you know. I don't have anybody that I can call on and go, how have you run a translocal tribe of churches and taken inner city people and people, Mexican people, Hispanic people in Mexico, and walk them all through into love? I don't have a roadmap. You don't have a roadmap. Do you have a roadmap, Andrew? I don't know. I mean, we've never had a roadmap. Shram has evolved. A rock tribe has evolved. So a few times we have attempted to follow Jesus, and we're learning from what I would say, not necessarily mistakes, although they feel like mistakes. We're learning as we go. And I hope that reassures you that we don't want to stagnate. We want to follow Jesus, and that means there's momentum. And that's hard to do. Okay, so Aaron, hold on. Aaron's been, you got it?
I think so.
Okay.
All right. So I love the life model. I love that the difference in this church the difference has been the intentionality in relationship. And the greatest commandment and the second greatest commandment, everything hangs on those two things, like love God and love people. So, in more traditional settings, you go to churches and they obsess over things like doctrine or the end times and all this different stuff, and that's all they talk about. Here it does seem like all we talk about is the life model. All we talk about is building relationships, and that's it. And I remember years ago when this church when the things were really going hot in Kansas City, you guys did a foundations course, and you talked about the basics of
the kingdom
basics of, the way I looked at it, you were teaching the basics of Christianity, like what we believe as Christians. And it sounds like that's never talked about anymore. And so that's just something I just wanted to point out. Like, I love getting in the Word. I've heard a lot of people just say, just go home and self-feed. But I think here we need to be able to have that here. Like, let's keep talking about the life model. Let's keep talking about how not to get divorced as a spiritual family when we're building a new building. And then the other thing too is like, I love the inner healing. I love, let's look at our past. Let's look at this. Let's look at that to become better people so we can relate better. But I think we also, and I'm not criticizing anybody because I wondered this about myself. As I'm introspective with the Lord, how do I do this without becoming so self-focused on my own pain that I lose focus on, really lose focus on the throne, on who sits on the throne. So I think I said everything I need to say.
Aaron, thank you. Can I respond? We do have a foundations course, just to encourage you. You may not be aware, but Wednesday night, I heard one of the funnest things I've heard in a while on Wednesday night from Pat. So because we do literally foundation. Here's the kingdom of God. We're introducing the Bible. I just taught on water baptism. So we're systematically going through the tenets of the faith with some exercises. And I said, what do you guys want to do at this point? Where are you at? And what were your words, Pat? Yeah. So Pat goes, oh my gosh, we love this. Let's go harder and let's go deeper. And so there is a setting where anybody can come. You're welcome. You could be in an MKF and you could come on Wednesday night where we literally are doing the foundational teaching. And of course, we've done that in the men's training too and stuff like that. So you're right. We want to stay clear, that combining those things, learning to love, but learning the Word of God. Those are two things we want to do well in our work. So thank you.
Okay.
We need to shift a little bit.
Yeah. I've been looking at the clock here and looking at you amazing people that are hanging in there. Tristan, Sarah, Joe, Flynn, Grace, Taylor, Cora, Sadie, Emma, Sarah. Ty didn't quite make it. All the kids upstairs. So I would love to say, guys, feel free. Go hang out. Go mess around and yell and scream and dream about hamburgers or whatever.
Wait, what?
And while you're stretching your legs, I would like to hold myself accountable for what I said at the very beginning. And if you would like a bit of more details, a roadmap, if you will, for what we were talking about with kids, I would like to offer that explanation. I don't want to leave here and just drop the ball, because that's why actually we're doing this, is because I felt like sometimes the ball gets dropped on these larger items. So it's a question.
Do you guys have 5 or 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Would you like to do it now? Would you like to do it later? Would you like to do it next Sunday? Because I want to be conscious and sensitive to the time and the capacity of everyone here to absorb.
My idea of the future of this church is with our children, and our young children especially, because they are our future. So I, for one, would like to hear later what you're doing. But in the last 10 years, all these churches that Nancy and I have been to, the children are coming back to church in groves. Now, it might be rock and roll with the music, but they're coming back, and they want to call a spade, not a shovel. So children know what's up. So I would like to know what we're doing with our younger children, and especially our little older children, because they are our future. And I think you guys are chosen and you're wonderful with kids, but I'd like to know what we're doing, and maybe some other people, because children to me are the most important things in this world.
So why don't you answer it real quick?
Yeah, well, yeah, so we've really only been meeting and dreaming and thought rhyming with the Lord for about a month now. And Tim, this has been on his heart for a long, long time. But basically what we're inviting everybody into is personally discipling our kids, each and every one of us. And what does that look like? It can start on the level when they walk in the front door and you take an interest in somebody and just ask them how they're doing, ask them how their track meet was, whatever. But really what we're hoping to do is to invite everybody to participate in kingdom life equipping for our kids. And so this is the logistical part that I'm going to share with you and what that looks like. So we have kind of a pyramid that we've been thinking about, Tim and me. Then we have our children's ministry team, which is Tim, myself, April, and Renda. And then we are going to have 4 classes. Nursery, which is 0 to 2, then a preschool class from 3 to 5, the elementary class from 6 through 12, and then the youth 13 to 19. And our hope is that if you're comfortable and feel called to do this, that you would be involved in one of those age groups once a month, every other month, something like that, as either a leader or an assistant. And if everybody takes just one Sunday here and there, really it'll share the load and it won't seem like a lot. Because here's where we are right now today. Right now I'm able to staff nursery every month, but it's the same 8 people every single month. And then our elementary group, I can staff when April's available pretty much, and that's just where we're at logistically. So our hope is that to create a spirit of adoption with these kids, that we can all get on board and do this. And really by discipling them, you're going to get discipled yourself. And this is very early for us. We don't know what curriculum is going to look like yet. We're planning this and looking at that. And by curriculum, I mean, sure, Bible, integration, crafts, that kind of thing, but really hands-on. Maybe or a semester. We're looking at semesters, 4 months at a time. And maybe there's first aid one semester, maybe there's gardening, maybe there's business, those sorts of things that would be integrated into the elementary group, already starting with them that early on. Am I forgetting? Approximate timeline, like when we're going to get started?
Well, we were just talking about to give an approximate roadmap. So whenever you do something new, you're rolling something out. I look at it like this. It's a bell curve. It's a probability curve. It almost looks like a funnel, right? We know where we're at right now. To kind of gauge where we would like to be in the fall, maybe it's it can deviate on what actually happens a little bit. And to say where we want to be specifically in a year from now, we don't know exactly, right? We can't just say it's here, 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 and here. But we were wanting to at least give a little bit of clarity on where we are right now, which is what Letha just talked about, where we're headed with these different teams, and the approximate timeline for that. Would you say we're hoping to get those teams put together this fall? Yeah. Soon.
Yeah, this fall, and there's opportunity for each of you to help out while we're figuring this out. There's a need, there's a right now need, absolutely. And while we're trying to figure this out, you can be involved even today. And so, some of you may be like, oh my gosh, I don't know about this. This is, I don't know. But I would just encourage all of you to pray about it and to please come ask us questions. Because we're Yeah, we're in the planning process for sure, but we want you to be aware that we're in that process, and we will take any input and help from you guys, whatever that looks like.
Are you just wanting people to individually, like, shoot you guys a text and say, I want to help, and this is the age group I want to help
Why don't you
with,
pass
or?
this around?
Oh, okay, sorry.
We have some sheets here.
Here, yeah, use the microphone there, Shane.
Yeah, so this
go ahead.
checklist here, and this is, I would say this is for you to, this is an interest that you have, okay? If you want to be a leader, an assistant, I can commit to one time a month. I can commit to one time every 2 months. Right on the side, if you're like, no, man, I could do twice a year. Cool, whatever. But one thing that isn't on here that we're still kind of looking at too is with each of these 4 age groups, having 1 or 2 people that are kind of over that age group as well. A shepherd have you, somebody that can oversee the classroom as well. So that's another thing if you feel called to maybe oversee. And that would mean helping with curriculum, making sure people are staffed for that month. But certainly I'm there to help with that. Not totally on you.
Yeah, so this sheet is really specific to the Sunday morning formal gathering and the needs for that. And that can feel very overwhelming to some people, myself included actually. And so there are ways to get your heart softened and get these relational circuits open towards the kids in a non-formal setting. So as you pray about this, if you're like, there is no way, I am not into that. It's again, you know where you're at right now. Where you're going to be in next year, next fall, this fall is really, right? It's the, it's praying about it. It's the Lord hitting your heart, and it's you going out and making those connections. So in the non-formal setting, there is definitely an invitation. One, start with getting to know the names of our kids. Ask them, what do you like doing? Ty likes doing backflips. If any of you guys are good at backflips, grab Ty and just hang out. Liz and Patrick, it was amazing the impact you had on Ty and I with 1 game of pickleball. I mean, it was awesome. Ty was talking about that for a long time. So it doesn't take a lot to make a real impact on our kids. It doesn't have to start out with, okay, I'll set up Sunday school, if you. I don't want to use that term, but the very formal part. The invitation is to, and come talk to Leith and I if you're interested in something like this. Grab a kid that you want to connect with once a month. It can be as easy as showing up at Flynn's track meet, or going to Cora's and Emma's symphony or whatever music, or showing up to a football game, the high school football game, and saying, hey, Taylor and Grace, that was awesome to watch you on the dance team, and Sadie, actually, our new Sadie. So it can be as easy as that. And Sarah, sorry.
Half the
yes.
dance team goes to.
Yeah, half of our girls are on the dance team. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, these this booklet that's going around, these are pictures of our kids that are broken up into the age groups. So if you feel called to nursery for say, then you can see their name and their face and be praying for them. And then these were passed out last week. This is just kind of a spreadsheet of all our kids in Rock Laramie too. If you didn't get one, put it on your refrigerator and you can be praying for them as well.
So let's stand, and if you guys got to take off, Greg, Gregory.
But please come. This was a very quick presentation of what we're thinking. Okay, like I said, we're in the planning of this, so be patient with us and help us.
So some of the words we want to soften up some of those words to basically we'd like the spirit of those four groups to be MKFs. And this not so much just a formal class, although there will be training, but it will involve a lot of just relational interaction and play and experiential learning. So the spirit of it isn't a formal lecture per se. These are small, little micro churches within our church, made up of 0 to 2 years old, or made up of 3 to 5 years old. So think of it like that you're going to come as an aunt or an uncle to interact with that particular age group. That's the spirit of it. So it takes the pressure off of being a professional teacher, that kind of thing. The spirit of it is connection. That's good. All right? So I'm going to ask if you wouldn't, Letha, close us in prayer, and then we're going to have lunch together. Yay!
Yeah. Yeah, Holy Spirit, I thank you for this morning, and I thank you for our yesterdays and right now and for our future. You're in all of it, and it is all weaved together for the core, for your kingdom. And we are all just honored that we can be disciples to these young ones, that we can be discipled by you, Father God, in order to do so, and then be discipled back by these little ones. And I just pray for each person here that you would just speak clearly where they're at right now, whatever their yesterdays are that need to be healed, wherever they are today, that you would just meet them in that place. And pray that our time to follow now in fellowship will be full and fruitful. And thank you for Brenda and Vicky and the preparation for this meal. And just we bless everyone in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, we're going to have a worship team meeting after our meal. So anybody interested in leading, or excuse me, in being on the worship team, join us. What's that? I don't work that. No, I'm just kidding.
Could you also make an announcement of the people are going to join Connections to let Nancy know so that we have enough food?
Okay.
Because we don't want to run out.
Right. I think I lost everybody.